Welcome to Patina Talks, our audio series that showcases and shares the expertise and insights of Patina professionals to help you and your organization. All Patina Talks can be found at patinasolutions.com.
Welcome to Patina Talks. I'm Mike Harris, the CEO of Patina Solutions. I want to welcome Rich Postler to Patina Talks today. Rich is passionate about how companies need to think differently about getting work done in today's day and age. In one of his many leadership roles and a long career with Procter & Gamble, Rich took charge of bringing more on-demand talent thinking into a global company that was using traditional models to resource talent for projects. He also led the effort to build a strong and organized capability to better handle managing on-demand talent for projects at an enterprise level. Rich, welcome to Patina Talks.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
So to start off, Rich, would you just share a little bit about your background?
Sure. I'm a Cincinnati native, so I grew up with Procter & Gamble. I actually worked there for the last 32 years. I recently retired after a long career. And honestly, the idea about on-demand talent was really kind of an innovation strategy I personally undertook. And I've learned a lot, met a lot of great people, including the Patina team, and I'm excited to be here.
Great, excellent. That's a long career with one company, but I know you.
It is.
You moved around a lot.
Oh yeah,
a lot of things over the years and got a lot of great experience. So, I think maybe to begin, if we could just have you explain when you think of the words on-demand talent,
Right.
What does that mean to you?
So the moniker that I use is 3 words: build, buy, and borrow. And when you think about talent on demand, it literally gives you the ability to source capabilities and skills. Traditionally, organizations think about jobs and human beings. But the idea here is you can go to multiple different sources to identify skills and capabilities that you need just in time, and then when you're done with it, you can move on. So it really is about a flexible way to work.
Yep, okay, very good. So what was the main driver for you to begin pushing for more use of on-demand talent at P&G? What were the benefits and the things that you wanted to see P&G get from this?
Well, it started with a trip out to Silicon Valley. And I was sensing the way that the marketplace was moving, how people were being more flexible with skills. And I took the opportunity to say, P&G can't keep working the way it's always worked. We're 180 years old, but the economy was changing around us. So we needed to take the lead, in my view, of how do we think differently about resourcing capabilities. The benefits that I was looking for was, at first it was cost, but that changed over time, speed, and then new capability development. But what I found out was that over time, speed is kind of the new currency. In big corporations, money can be available, but if you're not first to market, you won't have the A-team, you won't have the skills you need. And so we use those metrics to kind of measure success inside the company.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So you created this on-demand talent capability. It's kind of a mall concept is how
Correct.
I know you've explained it at P&G. And so you only allowed really a limited set of approved partners, vendors to come into the program. So would you just briefly explain to us sort of how and why this mall approach was taken?
As I thought about on-demand talent capability, I had to ask the same question, Mike, you asked me, is how do I explain this to general managers and presidents? Mm-hmm. And so we built this concept of a shopping mall because that analogy is very relevant to most people. Mm-hmm. And we have multiple stores in the mall, traditional suppliers, etc. What I built was the on-demand wing of the mall, if you will, with certain suppliers that brought unique, disparate capabilities that we could apply in an on-demand type way.
Mm-hmm. I have to think the concept of the mall also, when I first heard it, I got it. It wasn't like I was sitting there confused about what are you talking about? It was,
well, general managers and presidents don't have the time to have you give them some long explanation about managed service providers versus traditional providers versus consultants. Yeah. If you talk about it as a wing of the mall, they immediately get it, and then they want to know what stores are in the wing of the mall. Yeah. So you can carry out that metaphor so it's very relevant to senior people making decisions.
Right. So what when you started to talk about on-demand talent and begin the process of building this capability, getting it organized, right, what were some of the pushbacks you got?
Well, there are a few.
Yeah. One
is it's hard for people to initially understand why you would do this. I grew up in a build from within company, so we're used to doing things a certain way. P&G sometimes is impatient. Mm-hmm. And so if you want to help them understand what's possible, they will default to what they used to know. I started a pilot where I told people for 90 days, just give it a try. Let's see what we can learn. I paid for it. So it didn't cost the other parts of the business anything to learn how to play. It is an innovation strategy in my view. And as people got into it, understood what's possible and how fast it could be, how cost effective it could be, it really challenged their paradigms on how do I get work done, either individually or organizationally.
Okay. So it's been in place for a little bit.
Right.
And P&G's 180-year
Yeah.
lifespan, really small amount.
Only a couple for years.
Yeah, a couple of years is small. So are there some success stories that you can share in terms of how the on-demand capability has been helpful? And then maybe a flip side and maybe where it didn't work so well.
Well, some of the success stories are when senior managers understand that they can get more value faster. We've done it in research and development. We've done it in marketing. We're doing it in corporate design, where people really are used to working a certain kind of a way. And when you can demonstrate those value vectors to them, they're willing to convert, or at least consider it. The other thing is, I'm not selling anything. What I'm trying to do is bring visibility that there are other ways to get work done that may not have existed as recently as 3 to 5 years ago. At least open your mind to what's possible. So that was a bit of a leadership challenge from time to time. The reason I played my role is because I was a senior manager at the company and I could influence those decisions. Where it hasn't gone well, both where I've seen it in Procter and outside, is where if you don't take a multifunctional approach to how you operationalize this. A lot of people want to talk about the value they get created. Not as many people want to talk about how do you make it work. But to me, the how is equally as important, because if you don't have all of your respective functional things aligned, it's a very slow process. So I learned that kind of in year 2 when I realized I need to have my procurement people as part of the conversation, my HR people, my lawyers, my commercial people, so we could solve for this problem or create the opportunity in a multifunctional way to generate the most value.
Yeah. Did you have some executive level support or backing on this? I mean, you were a high-level
Right.
executive yourself, but some of the sort of super high-level folks?
Well, at one point the CEO said to me, Rich, we have got to think about to do things differently. And then my boss at the time, who was with me on that trip to Silicon Valley, I said, listen, if you give me X amount of money, give me 90 days to see if I can make money with it. Are you willing to try this out? And so the willingness of those senior managers to say, think differently, I'll help you fund thinking about it, and then being able to tell the story of how you got there actually worked incredibly well. I do believe there needs to be a senior enough manager, though, to go influence the decisions that are made on how works get done. Otherwise, people just default to do what they always did.
Yeah, exactly.
And they'll spend a lot of money.
Yeah, right. And so I do like how you guys have, of course, as a world-class branding company,
Yep.
you sort of branded the whole on-demand talent.
Right.
Tell us a little bit about that. That's kind of fun.
It is kind of fun. I mean, when I had walking around my shopping mall, I figured I had to tell people that this really is a different way of working. So I actually hired 2 brand managers to help me brand the concept of on-demand. We had business cards. I call myself the general manager of on-demand talent. So we literally could go penetrate the businesses and talk about how do you build a brand as you think about your work. And people thought it was creative. It caused people to pay attention. They didn't think that this was possible in an old company, but by demonstrating the innovation behind it and then the value that was coming from it, it actually became a brand. It's still a brand today with brand managers, multifunctional people leading it. That continues.
Yeah, and I know from experience, because obviously Patina is one of the companies
Correct.
that's in the mall. We have a store in the mall. We're very pleased about that. Just the organization of it, it is very professionally run. And you're right, there seems to be a real commitment to making it work.
Well, and the other thing that we did in the last year is we work annually with each of our line presidents to talk about what kind of capabilities you're going to need to win. We talk about what do you want to go build in the organization? What do you want to go buy maybe externally? Think of it as experienced hire. But what do you want to go borrow? And we actually built those choices into the annual talent review that every line president function has to complete as part, just like you do an innovation review. And that's shared with the CEO. So then we can go make selections on how do we want to acquire those capabilities. If we don't have them in-house, what do you want to buy them? Do you want to borrow them? Or do you really want to continue to invest in them? And making that systemic choice to build that into that review has made all the difference in the world.
Yeah, it sounds organized, and it's strategic.
Yes.
And it gets visibility and the kind of things you need for any program to be
And it's
successful.
disciplined. The presidents have to say, for me to win in this category, I need this kind of capability, or I have a new business that I'm operating. I don't have that capability. So if I'm going to beat competition, I have to go fast. I need to get it in a different kind of a way. That's where companies like Patina help us, because we can either source it for a short period of time, a long period of time, but I don't have to take 20 years and grow it, because over 90% of our people are like me. They've been there their whole career. So it takes too long to be able to build some of those capabilities. But now that we have this wing of the mall where I can source on-demand capability, I can move faster.
Yeah, excellent. I really like that a lot. So what advice would you have for general managers, line managers, procurement, HR, and candidly other executive leaders who want to bring this more well-rounded, kind of modern view of using on-demand talent in their companies? What lessons did you learn as you were trying to get people to understand this?
Well, first of all, you need a sponsor that has credibility with the organization. Otherwise, people just won't listen. I mean, that's number one. Number two, you have to encourage these leaders to have an open mind. It is kind of an innovation strategy, and I use that word intentionally. I'm trying to convince people that work can be done differently. So that's number two. Three is I'm not a salesman. If they don't want to do it, they don't have to do it. But why wouldn't you keep an open mind to understand that as opposed to going to X supplier, Y supplier, Z suppliers, there's other people that have access to talent that you just don't know about. Because again, we all grew up in the same model. This multifunctional team is huge. And as I've worked with other companies to understand how they think about this, where they have hard times when they think about how do I bring the multifunctional resources together? Because when you bring it together end to end, you're solving 80% of the problems for the potential client because you've already done the heavy lifting. Mm-hmm. The heavy lifting is not sexy. It's dealing with procurement, working with human resources, talking to all the attorneys, making sure you have the contracts, making sure you have the right billing structure. But when you go to a president and say, I can offer you this solution and it's compliant, and by the way, if you do something different, you could put the company at risk. People clap and applaud. They don't believe it's true, but I try it before you buy it. Mm-hmm. And so I think those are the major lessons. It's not perfect. Mm-hmm. And there's some things we can and can't do. Some of my big brands I would never put to an on-demand talent strategy. And these are billion-dollar brands, right? Mm-hmm. But there's a lot of project work, operational work, commercial work, that there are other ways to get done than going to the big, expensive providers.
And of course, you had the challenge of Procter & Gamble being a truly global company.
Correct.
And if I'm not mistaken, this service that you've created, this capability you've created, is accessible from around the world.
It is accessible around the world. Now, we also use guardrails to decide what work can be done in what country based on local law and that sort of stuff. Mm-hmm. So you can't do everything everywhere, but the concept and the access to it is completely global. Those talent reviews are globally done. Mm-hmm. So I go in and say, because I focus on the borrow a lot, what projects does healthcare, fabric care, home care need that they just want to borrow for a period of time because they want to learn, or maybe they want to innovate for a short period of time? And how do I use the wing of the mall that I built to source that capability? Because the worst thing that happens, they source it, the talent moves on. I don't have to hire somebody, retain them, when I can move fast to get the capability in.
Yeah, it just sort of makes sense. It's kind of the way the world's going, right?
Exactly.
On-demand car comes to get you. On-demand, I'm going to stay in this house over here. And that's sort of logical that the talent sourcing would flow the same way.
Oh, that's where the on-demand word came from for me. Because I was thinking about what's happening with Uber and Lyft and all these things. It's an on-demand service. Mm-hmm. So why can't I provide you capabilities you need to win in your business in an on-demand fashion? But I do think there is value in this idea of build, buy, and borrow. Because there's stuff I want to build. That's IP kinds of stuff inside the company. But not everything.
Right,
and
exactly.
if I can get people's minds open, they will be able to see that there's other opportunities.
Yeah, and building, of course, building your talent and giving them a chance to grow and improve and lead and everything keeps the retention there.
Exactly.
So if it's all borrow, or we just go by hiring people from outside, then you have another problem.
Well, and in a company like Procter that's that old, I mean, it's a very strong culture too. Mm-hmm. So building, we know how to do. We've been doing that for 180 years. Again, I'm a product of that. Buying is hard. Bringing in people from the outside in a culture where you're sourcing senior level people sometimes and you're putting it into an organization, antibodies do exist. So you have to do that very carefully. What I love about the borrow strategy is you're not making a long-term commitment necessarily. Right. Yeah. There's nothing wrong for someone coming in for 6 months or coming in for a project, and then they go. They have skin in the game for the project they're doing, but they're not affected, or the P&Gers aren't threatened by that capability because they know it's an on-demand kind of thing. Right. So it is a different way of working. I tell people that early on, that if you're not going to think about it differently, go use your old suppliers. But here are the risks, okay? Here are the costs. But if you can keep an open mind, there's other ways to get work done.
Yeah, and you've done such a good job in that capabilities mall of having a lot of different choices. Right?
Oh, the mall is huge. I mean, we have everything from managed service providers to IT providers to sales representative providers, all kinds of capabilities. But what I wanted to do with this was negotiate contracts that were different, that were more like consultant type contracts where you pay with a statement of work, you know exactly what the deliverables are. It's co-developed between the requester and the provider so that everyone knows what's happening. You're not just going into a computer and boom, somebody pops out.
Right.
You're actually thinking about what outcomes you want to achieve. It causes people also to be clear about the problems they're trying to solve. Many people think they're solving problem A, but what they're really solving is problem B. And then they lock themselves into these massive investments, and it's not necessary. But it's also a good discipline for Procter people to think about what do you really want to accomplish, because you have to go explain it to someone who doesn't know how to spell Procter & Gamble, to someone who doesn't understand our design palette scheme, and sometimes P&G or Sig, well, they should already know that. No. Right. I know this big company's been here for 30 years, but some of these in the wing of the mall, you're going to have to make a little bit of an investment to help translate a bit, because once they find them, they love them. It just takes a little bit of an extra investment. And I just tell them that going in. But if you want the value equation, you're going to have to do a little bit of extra work.
Yep, exactly. Well, very good. You know, so Rich, you've obviously spent your career in a huge company like P&G. So do you have any thoughts about even sort of smaller to maybe mid-sized companies and how they can take some of what you guys did there? And, you know, it's not going to be the scope and scale that you have, but to get people in their own companies thinking about using talent differently and maybe organizing it in a pretty smart way?
I do think this idea of a multifunctional team is critical, so you know what you're getting into. And it doesn't have to be huge. I mean, my team is like, and the size of Procter is like 8 or 10 people. But if you had a multifunctional team of 4 or 5, you can get it done. 2, I do think you need a champion. And the third thing I would say, Mike, is people just need to try it. What's the worst thing that can happen? You go back to the way you used to do work, but maybe you'll learn something along the way. So I think that regardless of the size of the company, the number of vendors might vary. You might have a lot or a few. But I think any company needs to move faster, and they can't buy or build everything they need right away. So if they've got a problem, they ought to open their mind to, is there an on-demand solution I should think about?
And I'd even argue if you're a small or mid-sized company, buying the talent isn't always even an option, because you can't afford the salary. The people maybe don't even want to work for a company that size,
or location. My biggest fear is
borrow more than you buy.
Well, my biggest fear is we would buy somebody and then in 6 months find out we don't need them.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why would? And by the way, there's some senior managers that thought that was possible. First of all, you can't find them. Second of all, you realize the cost of that. And what if it doesn't work? This is almost a way to get flexibility and agility to companies' problems. So again, small, medium, or large, I think the bureaucracy and the politics get more complicated in bigger companies. But this is what I tell all these other big companies: if P&G can do it, you can do some form or fashion of it. Trust me. It's you know, because people don't believe it's true. And I'm like, well, here's a 180-year-old company, and it's not perfect. We're not saving tons of money yet, but we will. But we saved a lot more than anybody ever thought we could do. And we're getting to market faster, building capabilities at the same time.
Yeah, excellent. Well, very good. Rich, I want to thank you for taking some time with us to share your experiences in building this significant on-demand talent capability and program at such a large company like P&G. And I know personally from working with you, you're a very passionate leader.
It gets me in trouble. It gets me in trouble sometimes.
That too.
But I call it courage.
Yeah,
I call it courage.
A lot of courage there with Rich. Passion and courage. But you know, you're willing to push for change and stay with the change to make it happen, and not everybody's able to do that. So I love that. And I want to thank everybody for listening to Patina Talks.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Patina Talks. We trust it provided valuable insights to help you and your organization. All Patina Talks can be found and accessed at patinasolutions.com.